Hi there. Welcome back to Tarot by Janine. How's everybody doing? I'm doing good. I just finished watching a really interesting video with a lot of intel from a fellow we haven't seen for quite a while, David Wilcock. It was on The Health Ranger. You guys probably know who I'm talking about. Mike Adams had him on, and it was quite recently, and I've shared it on my social medias. Now, we haven't really seen, at least I haven't really seen David for quite a while. And it seems to me he had a bit of an odd sort of, I think he ran into, I believe the guy's really intelligent. And I think he kind of, I don't know for sure, but was he maybe getting a little bit burnt out or hacked by the bad guys or I don't know. Lots of rumors going around what happened, but he kind of dropped out of the scene for a while. And apparently he's been in a cabin in the woods for quite some time. He says that he's been having long conversations with Archangel Michael and as well some kind of ghostly figure that he believes maybe is a future self or a part of himself. So a part of his own intelligence. So it's quite interesting. He doesn't say it in the words I'm using, but he says it in his own words. So he goes on and on. It's a really long interview. And he talks about how Howard Hughes actually discovered after, working with secret societies, basically discovers that there's a secret society in the background trying to run the whole world. That Howard Hughes figures out they have a plan to take over the world. Of course, and we know that that's true. Okay, but this was Howard Hughes back in the day, and he creates a big binder full of information on these guys, and he compiles the information kind of by setting his own spies to work because he's got the money to do it, and he figures out what the Dark Hat's plan is. He uses the real term for what this secret society is really called. Okay, so bloodline, family, secret society kind of stuff, right? And then he brings us kind of all the way to modern day, and David does, and where we're sitting kind of in the world situation dealing with this bunch. He mentions how largely a lot of their dastardly plans have been hijacked and that they've not been able to carry out a lot of their doomsday plans, which is absolutely true. And I've been getting that all along. And how most of their things that they would have had in place have been dismantled on the back channels by what he calls the Alliance. So White Hats. Some people don't call it the Alliance, but I call it the Alliance or the White Hats. So he's talking about that. So bring you up to speed. He mentions that recently Trump hit a hole-in-one from a very long distance in a golfing game. Okay, and apparently that's a really difficult feat, hitting a hole-in-one in a golf game, and in particular from this certain amount of, distance. Okay, so it was a really difficult feat. And he mentions something, let me just see here, executive function. So he talks about executive function and that he believes that Trump's aligned himself with other really great golfers, and he's created sort of this magic where he can tap into what he calls executive function. And he describes executive function, and he says that truthers and people that mean well and are fighting towards or working towards a better world and have integrity and have kept karmically, clear and know that they're for humanity, have actually got executive function working for them. He's basically saying that if you align yourself with the good, you can tap into this executive function. It's available to us, and that more and more of us are tapping into it. And it's only available if you're actually aware and you're working towards the good of the whole. So in this situation, right? So you can't be a sleeper and be tapping into it. Kind of thing is if I'm understanding what he says correctly. Now it's really interesting because we've got that a few times where even when I did those channelings from the Thunderbird, the Cougar, and my sister, Barbara, I think I tapped into something like that because we were getting that, I forget, was it the Cougar maybe, or was it the Thunderbird? But we got that there would be rewards for people doing good work. And in particular, abundance would be more available. But David Wilcock talks about it as executive function. It's very interesting. And you'll have to watch the video after watching this one, of course, to understand what I'm talking about. So what I want to ask, so to me, he gave a lot of intel in this interview. And I want to look at some of his intel here. Basically, he's saying that we're in the world situation. We must be really close to the end because the laptop situation has been revealed. And as far as he's concerned, it's got to be end game for that to all the kind of information to come out on that. And that the Durham report is far deeper and more complicated, complex, and is going to involve many, many, many people. And for that to be at the stage it's at, we must be in end times. We must be an end game for this movie. Okay, so it's actually a really positive take on where we're at. And he also says that it all has to be finished up and things have to be out in the open before midterms in the US. So I want to ask if that's true, that part of his intel. And he points out all of these things, all of the ways that the dark hats have failed. Okay, he points them out and points out how a lot of their stuff's been dismantled. So we want to look at, is that part of his intel correct? Then we want to look at, so there's a final doomsday situation that he's been aware of, he says, for a really long time. And he says that basically the white hats have dismantled that, as far as he can tell. Is that true? So have we dismantled all of these things that were set in motion and or were planned for us? Have all of those been dismantled? And then third question I want to ask, are people that are working towards positive outcome in this whole world situation, do they have the ability to tap into executive function in the way he describes it? So he calls it kind of our secret power, and it's available to us if we're working for the good of the world situation, right? So is that true? Do we have sort of that extra power of executive function where we can align ourselves with that kind of spiritual goodness because we're working for the good of humanity and actually make things happen? It's like bend reality in a positive way for ourselves because, well, it's kind of one of the rewards or perks really for working for the good of humanity. Now, I've been getting that in various different readings. So I want to know, is that part of his intel correct? So the first part I want to ask, are we in the world situation? Is the world situation likely going to wrap up, or at least the movie part of it, sometime here between now and the midterm? So before the US midterms, and have the alliance dismantled, all of the doomsday, or do we have to worry about, some booby-trapped situations, or are most of those or all of them cleared up and or dismantled? And then the third one is about the executive function. Is that part of his intel correct? So let's start with question one. In the world situation, is the movie going to reveal itself before midterms in the US, the midterm elections in the US? Let's have a look. Wow, it's looking pretty good here. We've got the 8 of Wands, so things are really focused in that direction. So that's certainly the plan. And we've got the Judgment card. It looks like the very next thing's going to have something to do with a very, very famous and wealthy and or well-positioned woman. So I can think of quite a few people that could be, right? So there's something going down with that woman that looks like it's really going to set the stage for that to happen before US midterms. And we've got the 6 of Swords. So the 6 of Swords, clarity, and so many, like a lot of the things that were supposed to come out have already come out. I've seen incredible amounts of information. Like if you're looking for truth, it's out there. It's pretty easily accessible these days, even with all the censorship, et cetera, et cetera. It's actually, if you're looking for it and your eyes are open, you're going to find it. That's for sure. Okay, so so far, that's looking really positive. Now we've got that Pentacle. So we've got the 2 of Pentacles. So that's absolutely what they want. But the 2 of Pentacles doesn't promise it'll happen. It says that's a very big likelihood, and that's the desire. Absolutely. But there's no promises in timing. As per usual, it's really hard to get any kind of timing here. But that certainly looks like. So a lot of it's dependent on this woman, something revealing itself around this woman or some big situation around a very famous woman who's a big part of this whole movie. So I can think of maybe the London Bridge situation, maybe the Clinton situation, lots of different famous females there I can think of. Let's look at the number 2 question. Is all of their doomsday tricks, have they been dismantled in the background? Or is there something else they still have firmly placed? Because, from all, everything I've been looking at, everything they planned, we'll hear about it and it'll sound really, really, nasty. But it's mostly been dismantled. Think about that volcano situation everybody was worried about was going to end up, a big part of this mountain was going to fall into the ocean and end up causing this tidal wave that was going to, and everybody was worried about it was going. I think that was one of the big, I think that was a really big ploy. And David Wilcox actually talks about that in this interview, okay, where he discovered that they were absolutely working on that happening, and it got stepped back. It got dismantled somehow. Their plan got shut down, okay? And he does go through several of the plans that we know were plans, and we hear about them on the back channels. They sound really, gut punchy, and then they don't happen. Nothing like, and it's way been stepped back. So this has been going on for 2 years. So as far as I'm concerned, it seems like he might be right about that, but let's double check with the cards. Wow. So, with that 8 of Cups, it's like they've had to step back a lot of their big, scary plans. Okay. And they've certainly still have some up their sleeve with that Knight of Cups, but they'll be very disappointed in the results of them. Okay, because they've been all switched around. It's like it's been neutralized. It's like these guys' nasty plans and all of their weaponry or whatever have been neutralized. Okay, so that's, the short and long of it is the good military, with that card there, have actually in the background taken this, dismantled is exactly the word. That's exactly the word I'd say. And there's going to be a few little scares. Most of it is just more about the words and less about action. Okay, remember that road trip I took? Do you guys remember me telling you the story about that road trip that was describing the whole situation, that this whole thing? I think we're still living out the vision I had on the road trip. The beginning of the road trip, the first 3 hours were really treacherous. We got a spring storm on my road trip. The universe told me, pay attention to the road and everything that happens on this road trip. It'll describe the coming, I think, years. Because this was a couple of years ago now, a year and a half ago anyway. So we had a 3-hour really treacherous ride. Then things got way better on the road, but we still kept getting signs, because there's signs, especially in the spring, all through the mountains, the route I was taking. There's all kinds of signs that tell you what the road conditions are. And every one of the signs was still saying really, really, really treacherous roads ahead. Watch out for sudden storms. I was going to run into the same issue that the first 3 hours were like. Okay, so all of the signs kept saying that, and I never did. It just got better and better, literally, the road, but the signs got more and more gut punchy. Okay, I got a feeling we're still living that out, you guys, and that's what this is looking like. This thing that he's calling executive function. So it's kind of a superpower that has become available, he says, from the universe to people who karmically are working for the good of the whole. I think he uses the word karmically. And he also says people that align themselves with the good side of this whole world situation. We'll just say it like that. Okay, so you and I, People watching videos like this, people doing videos like this, truthers with good hearts who are just working for the good of the whole, whoever those people are, because we don't know exactly which ones are that and which ones aren't, right? We can only speak for ourselves. I can only speak for myself. I know that it is my intention to do the good. So hearing him say that was really awesome, because I'll happily take that superpower if it's offered. You bet. It feels like it has been happening anyway. I'll be honest with you. Okay, so let's look at his, so David's idea of executive function. Well, around the question of executive function, if a person is coming from, so the Queen of Cups, the Queen of Wands, she comes from integrity. She has a great sense of humor. She says it like it is, and she's authentic. So the words integrity and authenticity come to mind when you see that actually most of the court cards aligning themselves with wands are going to have that. Integrity is a big word for wands if it's well aspected. And if you look at the other two cards in the row and the one behind it, it's really well aspecting. So she's very well aspected. So it looks like if you're coming from that place and you're in good personal standings with yourself and your higher self, right? So learning to love ourselves looks really important. You're absolutely going to have that superpower. We'll call it a superpower. Yeah, it'll be available to you. But now we've got the Three of Swords. Anyone on the opposite side of that is going to have the opposite. So yeah, I feel like people aligning themselves with the dark hats, even if they're doing it unintentionally, out of foolishness and stupidity, I feel like are absolutely going to have the opposite. So it'll seem like they got nothing but bad luck and unfortunate situations ahead. And I think it's part of the lesson here. I think it's part of the lesson. I think it's and if you're somewhere in the middle, I feel like people have to really pick a side right now. I think picking a side's really important. Somewhere in the middle kind of neutralizes it. But if you're literally working to push agendas that, unbeknownst to you even, are dark hat agendas, you will absolutely experience the exact opposite of what he calls executive function. Yeah, the world will be against you. The universe will not support that dark energy anymore, even if it's not intentional on your part, if it's just out of stupidity and like, I'm not paying attention. Okay, so really important to get on a side here and know what side of this you're on, because you'll absolutely have the superpower if you're working for the good of humanity and you're an awake person who's in touch with themselves to some degree, or at least working on it. Thank you so much for watching my video. Do like, share, and subscribe.